Defund the police does not mean abolish the police. It means a dramatic reduction in the number of police in our poor communities.
Yes, that's Congressman Jamal Bowman on the glories of defunding the police, which he says is great because that means fewer police in poor communities, which means more murders and more crime, and that's his goal because he's a Democrat. They love murder and murderers and defunding the police. That's what Democrats do. Vote Democrat for more murder, for more crime, for more carjackings. Well, happy Monday once again, and welcome back. We continue to be at 888-630-9625. Now I'm going to move on to President Trump in just a moment, who was out and having events over the weekend and in New York today in court because radical left-wing criminals like Letitia James, the Attorney General of the state of New York, and this radical judge who's lying in their prosecution of President Trump. President Trump arrived at court today in New York, and he had a few things to say about it all, and I want to share some of that with you as well. But first, let's take a little trip down memory lane with this radical socialist New York squad member. You may remember back in March of this year, first there was the mass murder at a Christian school in Nashville that was perpetrated by a transgender mass murdering suicide attacker. And then the Democrats saw the transgender mass murder suicide attack and said, hey, this is an opportunity for us to attack the Second Amendment, right? Because that's what they do. They're against the Bill of Rights. They're radicals. They're leftists. They're not on the side of Western civilization or the United States or the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or freedoms for people anywhere in the world, except the freedom to come across our border from any whole country that people are fleeing, even if they're wanted for mass murder, like the Brazilian caught in New Hampshire, convicted in Brazil of 11 murders, and then just walked into the United States, thanks to the Democrats. But back in March, it was Congressman Jamal Bowman who was in the halls of Congress, not in the House chamber, but out in the halls, screaming and yelling like a mental case and waving his hands around. And then a reasonable person, Congressman Massey from Kentucky, walked up to him and said, "Hey, I can see you're upset. You want to talk about taking guns away from people?" And Congressman Massey said, "Listen, if you want to save lives," which is not what he wants, then there has never been a school shooting in schools that allow teachers and school employees to carry concealed. There's never been a school shooting in a school where you allow the teachers to carry concealed weapons. That should mean something, but it doesn't to this lunatic, Jamal Bowman from New York. And then Congressman Thomas Massey, Republican from Kentucky, joins in after the Nashville murder of 3 kids and 3 adults by a transgender mass murderer suicide attacker, yet another Democrat suicide attacker. And I went and found the Washington Post story on this today to share with you. Congressman gets in shouting match over gun control after Nashville shooting. And Andrew Jung typed up the story on behalf of the international left. Days after 3 children and 3 adults were fatally shot at a small Christian school in Nashville, a heated discussion over gun control between Representative Jamal Bowman, New York Democrat, and Representative Thomas Massey, Republican, Kentucky, who is a rational adult, and this Bowman guy is a mental case. And honestly, I don't know how Congressman Massey held it together the way that he did. But it says Bowman, a former middle school principal, I think I might have said high school, middle school principal, was telling reporters that Republicans are gutless for not backing gun control laws after this week's shooting because the Democrats, I got an idea. Let's ban Democrats from schools. Maybe that'd work. He wants to ban guns from schools. It's Democrats that are the problem. not inanimate objects. Democrats should stop shooting everybody. That would be a great leap forward civilizationally and culturally. But this is what it sounded like in March of this year.
They're all cowards. They won't do anything to save the lives of our children at all.
Abortion,
Cowards.
abortion,
Pressure
abortion.
them. Force them to respond to the question.
Stop shooting people.
Do anything to save America's children, and let them explain that all the way up until election day on 2024. Let them explain.
It's all about election day.
Election day on 2024.
It's not about lives.
They're freaking cowards. They're gutless. They're not here.
He's mentally unstable. I got to tell you, and then the sane, rational adult congressman walked up to, and he couldn't have been more calm, and he wanted to have a rational discussion, but Representative Jamal Bowman is not capable.
That allows teachers to carry.
Carry guns? You think more guns lead to more death?
More guns
lead to more death.
What a moron.
Look at the data. You're not looking at any data. You're carrying the water for the gun lobby. Look at the data. More guns lead to more deaths. Good. States that have open carry laws have more death.
In every school
States that have open carry laws.
Keep repeating it. Be louder. And he's poking him and bumping the congressman. Congressman Massey is backing up and trying to have a discussion. Yeah, and then let's overfund Planned Parenthood and who do you think's shooting all these kids? And in this case, it was a transgender Democrat mass murdering anti-Christian school suicide attacker.
Have you ever worked in a school? Have you ever worked in a school? Have you ever worked in a school?
Yeah, I think I understand your question.
Have you ever worked in a school?
Ask it again, moron.
Have you ever worked in a school? You will not answer my question. Don't stop and talk to me.
This is the congressman in question, and he's a miscreant. He should have been expelled from Congress for that. He's mentally unstable, but being mentally unstable as a Democrat member of Congress is actually just fine. It works well for him. And the news media's got your back. Got your back. All right, we're not quite done yet because number 21, then we're going to get to President Trump, Scout's honor. MSDNC, Yasmin Vasogian. Vasogian. It's Yasmin Vasogian, who was on MSDNC and pretending that she's covering the news when talking about Congressman Bowman's pulling the fire alarm on Saturday.
Last thing I want to mention, and then we're going to take a quick break. There was a mention of Jamal Bowman, Congressman Jamal Bowman, and the pulling of some sort of fire alarm. And I just want to read for you some of the reporting so you understand what actually went on there.
She's going to clarify.
There were some reports that began to emerge about Representative Bowman, who was seen pulling some sort of fire alarm on the Cannon House office building earlier today. We got a statement on that. Saying Congressman Bowman did not realize he would trigger a building alarm as he was rushing to make an urgent vote. The congressman regrets any confusion, just to clarify some things on that, because I know there was likely some folks kind of scratching their heads wondering what it was they were asking Speaker McCarthy about.
They just wanted to clarify, MSDNC. Just wanted to clarify a few things because, that's your clarification from MSDNC. If you think you're getting your news from MSDNC, you're brain damaged and you don't know anything. Well, it's like the old Ronald Reagan quote. It's not that Democrats don't know anything. It's just that so much of what they know is wrong. It's true that they fill their heads with a lot of mush and say, well, they know a lot of things. It's just that all of it is wrong. That's Congressman Jamal Bowman. He's a Democrat. And I honestly they want to ban guns from schools. Ban Democrats from schools. I don't know how you keep guns out. I don't know how you keep Democrats out, but the deadly combination is when you marry up guns with Democrats, because then they shoot everybody. See how that goes? Honestly, if you remove Democrats from the country, we'd have the crime stats of Sweden. I was talking about Sweden last week, and actually I was when I was talking about Sweden last week because I compared crime stats in the U.S. without Democrats to the crime stats in Sweden, which are very, very low, of course, very, very low. And here's the story that broke over the weekend that is kind of a big deal. Sweden is now dealing with a lot of new crimes because a lot of non-Swedes have moved there, and the left loves open borders. A lot of Turks and Syrians have moved to Sweden, and others from Afghanistan and the Middle East. And now there are gangs there that are shooting people all over the place, and there are mass shootings in Sweden. This is all brand new to them, right? And people hunt and people have guns in Sweden, but they don't shoot each other because they're Swedish, right? But I was talking about it last week, and really the Turkish Kurds are the biggest gangs now in Sweden because they opened their borders thinking that, liberalism is really good and we'll have Turkish Kurds and moving into Sweden, and that will make us culturally rich and ethnically diverse. And what happened is gangs came and bombings. Here's a story from the Associated Press. 3 killed in shootings and an explosion as deadly violence continues in Sweden. That's the Associated Press story, and I was sharing that with you last week. Over the weekend, here's the headline. Sweden's prime minister calls in army chief as gang violence surges. That is from Politico, the radical left-wing people at Politico. A wave of killings has shaken Sweden over the past few weeks, leaving 11 people dead in September alone. And so the prime minister there, Ulf Kristersson, he's the PM. He's summoned the head of Sweden's armed forces and the state's police chief to a meeting, and they had the meeting on Friday after a wave of gang violence. And, we're going to hunt down the gangs, and we're going to defeat them, Kristersson said, the prime minister, during a television address. And he's calling in the military and the police chief because they don't put up with this stuff. And we shouldn't put up with it here either. Not in, Jamal's way of eliminating the Bill of Rights, because that's what the left does, right? And completely crazy. So we got that going for us, right? Now let's go to President Trump, but I wanted to share that. I've got friends in Sweden and in Georgia, and they listen to the radio show, thanks to Al Gore and his amazing internet. And I've been trading, stories and a little back and forth with Ann and George in Sweden about what's going on there with the waves of immigrants who are now killing people and blowing places up because, the liberals in Sweden are making everything better in Sweden now. More killings, gangs, mass shootings, bombings. Congratulations. You listen to the liberals in Sweden, and look what happened. All right, now let's go to number 23, because President Trump was in Anaheim, California the other day. He's had a very busy weekend and a busy morning, too. Let's go to President Trump in Anaheim. This is the drought, so he didn't want to be sexist.
I didn't know you had a drought. It's a man-made drought. You know that? Man/women. It's a women-made. I don't know. I don't think women did that. No. Women are too smart to do that. They don't create droughts.
Yay, we don't create droughts.
It's a man-made drought. Let's leave it man-made. I think women will be honored when I say that.
It's a political rally. It's stand-up comedy. It's shtick. It's funny. This morning in the courthouse in New York, he was not doing shtick. He was not doing jokes. It was not a happy. But I'm going to bring you up to speed. President Trump over the weekend, and then President Trump this morning in the courthouse in New York, where the left-wing mob is abusing their power to lynch the political enemies of the Democrat Party, as the Democrat Party has a long history of doing. President Biden's nefarious and harebrained scheme to introduce the digital dollar in the United States is already underway, and it's very important to understand the consequences here because, contrary to what they're telling us, believe it or not, this is not in your best interest at all. And time is of the essence because the scheme is already being implemented. You got to protect yourself, your savings, your retirement, and you can help protect your savings from the risks of the digital dollar by diversifying with gold and silver IRAs. Call the experts to get started at American Alternative Assets. Call them today at 888-4-GOLD-20. That's 888-446-5320. They'll give you all the guidance you need on safeguarding your retirement savings Say no to Joe Biden's digital dollar. Call 888-4-GOLD-20. Individual results may vary. There is no guarantee that past performance will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah, plenty of President Trump coming up from over the weekend and from today. And he used a very naughty word. He used a very bad word up on the stage. And today, taking it to the Democrat crooks that are trying to lynch him in New York. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. All right, a lot of President Trump coming up, in particular from the courthouse in New York today, where he spoke right up, as you might expect. Also, I want to point out, I'm reading an ad for American Alternative Assets about Joe Biden's digital dollar scheme, which reminded me that there's news over the weekend in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of businesses that will not accept cash. Now, a big part of that is they don't trust their own employees to not skim, to not steal from them because the Democrats, But in D.C., a law was passed in 2021 that prohibits businesses from not accepting cash. And according to the city government, now it's going to be enforced as of October 1st. That's yesterday, where at the beginning of the new fiscal year, because the government can't just go with the Gregorian calendar, they have to create their own. And so as of yesterday, all businesses in D.C. must accept cash. And our mayor, Bow Wowser, said on Friday that officials will respond to any complaints received of businesses not taking cash. There's a sandwich place in my neighborhood that won't take cash. Then you got to use your credit card and everything. Then there's this electronic record of everything you bought and where you were and the time. And it's, no, cash is king. And by the way, on every American bill, it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, which means that it must be accepted by businesses that are open to the public. But the left is looking to phase that out because, they're creepy. They're very, very creepy people, aren't they? Now, we don't really have time, do I? I was going to go grab the next caller, but as I so often do, I'm running out the clock. I got President Trump coming up, and this is really the Democrats destroying America. You can't use currency. You can't use money, paper money, cash money. No. No, we want a computerized log of everything that you buy and what you bought and when you bought it and where you were, because they're building a draconian super state surveillance society and erasing the American dollar. They're not on our side. Colin Rugg has an X account and has some X posts on the now deceased California Senator Dianne Feinstein, who was widowed some time back. Her investment banker husband passed away. They did very, very well, and they have, 4 daughters. And now the Democrats are giving the Senate seat temporarily, Dianne Feinstein's Senate seat, to a woman who is a woman of color, because the governor there promised that he would only give the seat to a woman of color if Dianne Feinstein died, because qualifications to serve in the United States Senate have to do with your melanin levels and your genitalia. No other qualifications needed when you're a Democrat. Also, she has the bonus gift of being LGBTQ, QIAA+. I think she's just L, but, you got to have the whole panoply in there. So Colin Rugg is pointing out with the passing of Dianne Feinstein, she's leaving behind a massive fortune to her 4 daughters. As a public servant, earning less than $200,000 a year, and with her investment banker husband. They've done very, very well, worth well over $100 million for sure. A $60 million Gulfstream jet. I think it's actually put at $62 million for the Gulfstream jet. It's a beautiful jet, one of the world's great private jets. Not as nice as President Trump's private 757, which is a Boeing airliner, but never mind that. So the $62 million private jet is a Gulfstream. The $21 million San Francisco mansion. A $7.4 million Washington, D.C. home, which is a compound with multiple structures. It's fairly close to the radio station here, actually. A $5 million home in Hawaii. $70 million in cash in the bank. A $25 million Aspen home. A $36 million Tahoe home. And that's all fine. And also Colin Rugg points out that Dianne Feinstein and her investment banker husband dumped all of their holdings in Allogene Therapeutics. They had lots of stock there. Just weeks before the coronavirus pandemic panic set in, after being briefed on COVID. The senator was briefed on COVID. Then they dumped all their stock in Allogene Therapeutics, you see, and it was okay. They were actually investigated by the FBI. Then the FBI quietly dropped the case, dropped the investigation, because it's good to be a Democrat, and the FBI is corrupt. That's the thing. Man, telling you. Her husband's wealth. He died a while back, as I said. She was the widow, Dianne Feinstein. And after he died, she took much of the whole shebang, took it over. Her personal wealth, just what's in the bank, about $70 million. And it's good to be a Democrat, isn't it? And all of this is okay because we don't actually have a news media in the United States, which is kind of sad, I think. But that's me. Call me old-fashioned. All right, let's go to President Trump, because President Trump was out over the weekend. He had an event Friday night in Anaheim, California, and this is the one where I'm going to have to warn you. He used a bad word while at the microphone. It's a polysyllabic compound word, and we had to beep a part of it. But he's talking about the people that are after him, the Democrats with power in New York and in Georgia and in Washington, D.C., and they decided he's a threat to their political dominance, so they came up with a solution.
What they've done is they've gone after opponents so that if you become president or some other job, but if you become president and you don't like somebody, or if somebody's beating you by 10, 15, or 20 points like we're doing with crooked Joe Biden, let's indict the mother. Let's indict.
Whoa. The Mamma Jamma. I typically use Mamma Jamma. I use, she's bad Mamma Jamma. She's bad Mamma Jamma. But that was the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, former and future, and using the unvarnished version of Mamma Jamma, I think, is the thing. And then President Trump last night was in Ottumwa, Iowa, home of Radar O'Reilly. Ottumwa, Iowa. And in Ottumwa, Iowa, he was also talking about the indictments, knowing that he's due in court this morning in New York City.
Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me,
that's who they are.
I consider it a great badge of honor. Because I'm being indicted for you.
The Marxists, communists, and fascists, and, that ain't so far from the God's honest truth. And I like to remind people that the fascism, according to Benito Mussolini, is the merger of state and corporate power. And the Democrat Party and the media and social media certainly have accomplished that in an effort to secure and maintain information dominance so that they control the message all the time. That's how you win, by stepping on the other guy's message and promoting yours. That's why the FBI got a hold of Facebook and then Twitter, now X, to crush the New York Post reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop on the lead up to the 2020 presidential election. And then Joe Biden got more votes by far than any American in the history of the country without ever even campaigning. What a deal. Information dominance. Crazy. So President Trump in Ottumwa, Iowa, talking about the Biden family and their corrupt business dealings.
I could have made deals. I had countries coming up to me, heads of everybody. I'd like to make a deal with you, sir. Biden would have made it. Hunter would have made it. They would have walked away with a fortune. I could have made, by the way, their deals are terrible, and they did nothing for them. But I could have walked away with billions.
With billions, billions and billions. Now, Ottumwa, Iowa, Anaheim, California, Friday night, Anaheim, California, Sunday in Ottumwa, Iowa, and this morning in New York City, the city that never sweeps. And in New York City, the president arrived at the courthouse there, and there were lots and lots of cameras and, fake reporters doing the work of the Democrat Party and all that good stuff. And the judge here, you got the corrupt prosecutor in New York, right? The corrupt prosecutor in New York is, Attorney General is, of course, one of the radical leftists who's been pursuing President Trump. And then there's this judge, Arthur Engoron, and President Trump is having none of this, walking into the courthouse today for an in-person appearance. And I believe that he was not required to show up himself for this particular event, but he decided to show up in person. And President Trump comes out swinging.
This is a continuation of the single greatest witch hunt of all time. We have a rogue judge who rules that properties are worth a tiny fraction, 1/100th, a tiny fraction of what they actually are. We have a racist attorney general who's a horror show, who ran on the basis that she was going to get Trump before she even knew anything about me.
That's true. She campaigned on getting Trump, and then the radical left-wing Democrats in New York voted her into office. It's an elected position. The Attorney General of the state of New York, Letitia James, she is a woman of color, WOC. Is she also LGBTQ? I'm not sure. I don't care. They care an awful lot. Letitia James, African-American woman who ran on I will get Trump, pounding the table. And then she won, and she came at Trump, saying, and now defrauding banks who don't feel that they were defrauded, getting loans from banks that were paid back with interest. The banks were happy. Nothing was misrepresented as far as the banks are concerned, and this is their business. But Letitia James and this radical judge, Arthur Engoron, who said that Mar-a-Lago was worth $18 million, and Trump overvalued his real estate to secure loans because he couldn't secure loans otherwise. And then the judge comes in, Engoron, and he says Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. I shared with you last week local real estate people saying they'd put it on the market for at least $300 million. So in accusing President Trump of lying about the value of his real estate, Judge Engoron lied about the value of his real estate. No sense of irony, these criminals. Also, left-wing Mediaite noting today in court, the camera shows Letitia James, the radical left-wing anti-Trump crook, who is the chief law enforcement officer of the state of New York, and a gangster, shows Letitia James eyeballing Trump. Judge Engoron mugging for camera. He's mugging for the camera. This crusty old leftist is mugging for the camera, smiling and smirking. Hey, I got Trump in here. I got TV cameras. Ooh, I'm going to... Surprising footage from inside New York State courtroom revealed Attorney General Letitia James, radical extremist, eyeballing former President Donald Trump moments before his fraud trial begins. Cameras were not expected in the courtroom for the trial, and this clip appeared to come from a sole camera operator capturing B-roll before the proceedings began. Trump had been found guilty of business fraud before the trial even started, has been found guilty of business fraud and appeared in court Monday morning as the judge reviews and decides the appropriate punishment. It's a punishment. You don't have a proper trial. You're just declared guilty, and then they're trying to pull all of his business licenses from him so he can't do business in New York. And the judge hired clowns, or he's a clown himself. Overstating the value of your real estate. So we will understate the value of your real estate to prove that we're the legitimate ones and you are misrepresenting. So honestly, the judge should be disbarred, taken out of there in handcuffs, and probably thrown in jail for 20 to 30 years. I don't think he'd make it. President Trump this morning talking about, hey, I got tons of money and the banks love me. And here's the thing. There's no aggrieved party here. Letitia James is the aggrieved party, and she is just a political actor in the state of New York and the Democrat Party. The banks did not file a complaint and say, hey, Trump overstated the value of his real estate to get loans. The banks didn't say that. And if you ask the banks, they'd say, no, the loans are good, and he paid them back, and we got our interest, and we're happy about everything. There is no complainant, and there is no aggrieved party. It is pure politics from Letitia James, who is a radical that ran on the concept, the premise of lynching Trump. She won, and she's doing everything she can to lynch Trump. She should be disbarred and dragged away in handcuffs. President Trump this morning in New York.
Just so you know, my financial statements are phenomenal. They are actually less in terms of the numbers used than the actual net worth. The actual net worth is substantially more. No bank was affected. No bank was hurt. They don't even know why they have to be involved.
Well, and that's kind of a clue. If the banks are fine and believe that he didn't overvalue his property, the banks would check the value of the property. That's their job. They're in the banking business. President Trump.
There was no victim here. The banks were represented by the best, biggest, most prestigious law firms in the state of New York, actually in the country.
Listen to the cameras.
Some of the biggest and best law firms. In all cases, the biggest and best law firms. That's who represented them.
Like locusts.
The banks got back their money. Again, there was never a default. There was never a problem. Everything was perfect. There was no crime. The crime is against me.
It is, and they lied about the value of Mar-a-Lago, saying it's worth $18 million. There are houses within 1 mile of this radio station that are worth more than $18 million. Mar-a-Lago, according to local Palm Beach real estate people, at least $300 million. So the court is misrepresenting and lying about the value of his real estate while accusing him of misrepresenting and lying about the value of his real estate.
They have one property that's worth anywhere from 50 to 100 times what this judge put down as a value. Put down a value $18 million, and the property's probably worth, could be anywhere from 50 to 100 times more than that. And a lot of those numbers could even be low.
$1.8 billion. You never know. You find your Chinese businessman, your, Saudi prince, and it's one of the great estates with a great history, one of the great estates in the United States of America, President Trump.
This trial could have been brought years ago, but they waited till I was right in the middle of my campaign. The same with other trials and indictments. It's all run by DOJ, which is corrupt in Washington. Everything goes through them. They're all corrupt people. Frankly, our country is corrupt. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. We're going to straighten it out.
And, he doesn't take this stuff sitting down. He's going to punch back, which is really his greatest quality is the punch back. President Trump this morning in court in New York.
These are corrupt people we're dealing with, the most corrupt people. We have a great company. I built a great company. It's got tremendous value. It's got some of the greatest real estate assets in the world. And now I have to go before a rogue judge as a continuation of Russia, 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 as a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time. And I don't think the people of this country are going to stand for it. And
that's in the courthouse in New York, not the courtroom, but in the courthouse. speaking to the locusts before he went into the courtroom, where Letitia James is sneering at him like a Soviet apparatchik, and the judge is smirking and mugging for the cameras after claiming Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million. Please. They're liars. They're crooks. And what President Trump said, there was nothing there that he said that was untrue. I don't know if you could get $1.8 billion from Mar-a-Lago, but I wouldn't rule it out. It's a very, very famous estate. Letitia James, a radical leftist, the Attorney General of New York, more than 1,700 staffers campaigned on getting Trump. There are no complaints from the banks, but she claims that, and she's trying to take $250 million from him and strip him of his business licenses in New York because she is a political chainsaw for the Democrat Party and a radical. And she's anti-democratic, but she calls herself a Democrat. She's a leftist. Let's go to Ronnie, calling from Austin, Texas. Ronnie, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Yeah, I was thinking when Trump was at the courthouse this morning, after he gave his little speech, he should have gone over to the wall and pulled the fire alarm.
Just to get the good. And then we'd learn how the Democrats respond when someone pulls a fire alarm, because it would demonstrate the double standards thing again, wouldn't it, Ronnie?
Yeah, it's not a crime anymore, you know.
That's right.
It's kind of yeah.
That's how it works. When Democrats do it, it's not a crime.
Yeah, Democrats, yeah.
That's good. You're in Austin, Texas, eh?
Yeah.
You got a lot a lot of crazy Democrats there, don't you?
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere. They're like, they come out of the woodwork and stuff. You know, they're like roaches.
They are. Yeah, when you turn the lights on, they come scurrying out. It's too bad. Austin is such a beautiful place, and Lake Travis and Lake Austin, and it's beautiful, and it's Texas. And lefties move in, and they just poison everything, don't they?
It's getting worse. You know, Congress Avenue is it's sinking.
Is that right? I got to tell you, Democrats, you give them anything, and they'll ruin it. Well, they call themselves Democrats. Keep in mind, the Democratic Party isn't. They're not liberals. They're the left. And the left destroys. And that's what the Democrat Party is now here to do. Letitia James is today's example. There will be more later on in the day.